Hi, Patrick, can you hear us? Looks like you're on mute.
You're still muted. I'm going to send you a prompt. If you could click on that. There we go.
All right, try now.
There we go.
Perfect.
There you go, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Patrick, we'll get started in just a minute. We're still waiting on a few members.
All right.
Start the meeting here soon. We're waiting on one more member.
Thank you so much. All right, we are going to bring our meeting to order here on, what is today, this
September
September 17th.
Yes, ma'am.
Jennifer, would you like to call the roll, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mimi Fuji Strickler,
Here,
David Simpson,
Here.
Patrick Fisher,
Here.
Hal Taylor,
Absolutely.
absent. Audrey Keller, present. Roman Schoenberg, Donna Keats. Donna, if you could please unmute.
Here,
Thank you. Stan Dowdy, here. Stacy Shin, absent. You have a form, Madam Chair.
thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to public comment. Do we have anybody that would like to give any public comment at this time during the meeting?
Madam Chair, we haven't received anyone who's registered for public comment, but before we move on, Jennifer has a disclosure to make about the agenda.
Madam Chair, first item today is public comment. Members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering through the following link, which can be found on reno.gov/meetings. That is https://links.reno.gov/48FWYNG. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you are an attendee of the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. We have no public comment, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jennifer, so much. Okay, we're gonna move on to item A3, which is gonna be approval of the agenda. And are there any changes to the agenda today, Jennifer?
Yes, Madam Chair, our C1, which is the 6,000 Plumas Street redevelopment agreement, they have withdrawn their application, so they won't be here today.
All right, thank you.
is it withdrawn or is it deferred or, I mean, have they withdrawn it from?
We got notification from the assigned planner that the application was withdrawn. They're going to come back eventually, but for now it's been
Fascinating.
removed from our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that. Right, so with that change to the agenda with the withdrawal, it's item number C1. Would somebody like to make an motion to approve the agenda?
So,
Thank you, Audrey. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Donna Keats. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Motion of agenda approved. We're gonna move on to A4, approval of the minutes from July 16th of 2024. Does anybody have any changes, additions, or anything to add? Can't add, but any changes, anything different from the minutes? Jennifer?
We haven't received any requests for minute changes. Do any of the members wish to note any changes? Seeing none, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from July 16th?
Stan Dowdy, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by David. All those in favor say aye.
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 I didn't mean to say aye. It was automatic.
They go like, psh.
I'm not a voting member. No.
Moving on to the council liaison report.
Yeah. Good. Well, it's great to see everyone. First thing I wanted to do was introduce Pierce Donovan, right?
Mhm.
And did you already introduce yourself or no?
Just some of the members, but not all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to make a motion to appoint him to the NAB, but the next time they let me make motions, I think it'll be in October. But I wanted him to come to our first NAB. The only thing he can't do is vote on stuff. But we just had all the voting pretty much except for adjournment. And usually most of it's all discussion. And I wondered, Pierce, if you could take a few minutes to introduce yourself. Yeah.
Sure. So first, Pierce Donovan, I'm a professor at UNR. I've been here for 13 months, but I've always been somewhat civically engaged wherever I move to. and I wanted to get started here. I learned pretty quickly about the NABs after forming the Reno Strong Towns group. If you happen to hear about that before, but I started the chapter for Reno. There's about 65, 70-ish members that at least post in our Discord server, which anyone could have access to if you'd like to, but it's a place for people to, within Reno, get in touch with other people who can help them do the thing they want to do. So we have members from RTC, we have people from the university, we have others who show up regularly. I try to invite a new speaker, guest speaker to all of our meetings, which are second Wednesdays of the month at Local Beer Works at 6 o'clock.
Where are they?
Local Beer Works
Beer Works.
in Midtown, yeah, across the street from Craft.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
And
what is Strong Towns?
yeah, Strong Towns itself is, the national group is mostly focused on, fiscal responsibility of towns and cities, making sure that development doesn't necessarily bankrupt the city 20 years down the line. But in recent years, I would say that Strong Towns has been also not, I guess, to that end, it seems to have been adding on or maybe co-opted by this idea of placemaking, making places for people, not necessarily car dependent infrastructure. It turns out those two things kind of come hand in hand. It's really difficult to have not fiscally responsible cities that aren't just endlessly sprawling, right? And so paying more attention to some of the economic centers of the city are really important. Strong Towns likes to do that. Strong Towns also likes to put in a lot of bike lanes wherever you can see them. The only other thing I'd mention related to the Strong Towns stuff and to the SNAP meeting is I got one of these little mailers from RTC this week talking about the next bike plan. And one of these lines on Virginia Street, so I work at UNR and I bike from Midtown every day to get to work. I don't drive my car to work. It's only about 2.5 miles away. This one little blue line in this proposed map is the single greatest thing that will change my quality of living. So I only wanted to take a second to bring this up today, just in case you haven't seen this yet, I can pass this around or something.
Did anyone else get this? How do you think you got it? I mean, are you on a list or something?
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe perhaps someone at RTC that comes to our meetings, that put me on a list somewhere and mailed it to me, but it just says current resident, so it's not
Okay,
explicitly addressed to
but
me.
maybe you could share that with Tyler and we could get
Okay.
awareness of that. And then what do you teach, Pierce?
Sure, I'm an environmental economist. I mostly teach a class called econometrics at the PhD level. And most of what I do could be explained, like you've heard that little thing about correlation doesn't imply causation. In my class, you learn how to tell the stories that make that actually possible. So how to actually say like, oh, this correlation is a causal effect. That's mostly what I focus on. In one camp, I'm an expert at causality, and another, I spend a lot of time studying biological systems on the Colorado River. My one research project I'm focused on right now has to do with literally changing the temperature of the Colorado River downstream of Lake Powell using different intakes from Glen Canyon Dam. You give up a lot in terms of hydropower, about $6 million a month, by throwing water through the intakes that don't generate electricity. However, cooling off the river is really good for the downstream ecosystem, and so I help time those flows.
And for those of you who know me, you can imagine that when I went to interview Pierce, I don't know, was it 3 hours? It was a very.
It was a little over 3 hours. We had a half-hour appointment in Outlook, but I was happy with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned so much already from Pierce, since we exchanged a lot of information. And so, you know, it was very informative. Thank you for even being interested. And you live in what's now Ward 1, but will become Ward 2 in 2 months.
Yeah.
So it seemed like a good ad. And then, so thank you for being here today. Thank you for being interested. And then I just got a note from Tyler Hinman that his appointment's up and he's gonna not be able to continue because I think he talked about his work schedule. There was a couple conflicts. So we'll have another opening coming up. So, you know, we'll continue to look for people that maybe were in Ward 1. I've already had some people call me. And then since Roman's gone, I wanted to mention that actually Roman did an interesting thing. Roman Schomburg lives in South Reno. And I've known him for probably at least 10 years now. And he sent me a really interesting little video a day or two ago. And what it was here the fire's just getting over, and these power lines over on the other side of South Reno, over by Western Skies, if you know where that is, were sparking and making flames. And he called it into 911, and he got a video of it, which he sent me. And then they called MV Energy, who de-energized the line. It could have been, it's just what happened at the Collin Ranch fire. There was sparking lines, and that's very close to here. And so I was so proud of him, and the police chief, the fire chief was so grateful that he got right on it. So we could have had another fire, directly across the street, back by the upland interface, the wildland interface. So that was interesting. And the other thing I wanted to mention in my update is that I was a few minutes late because I just tried out the Moana pool for the first time. You were worried I was gonna jump in on the groundbreaking, which it looked like Devin did. Did he?
Yes, he did.
Anyway, but anyway, I tried all 3 pools. They were amazing, but most amazing was the hot pool, frankly. I love swimming laps, and I did that too. So the biggest pool is cooler. The middle-sized pool is warmer, and then the hot pool is hot. And I talked to every single person because it's a natural chit chat kind of thing. I met everyone. I even met another geologist, and she's just moving here. She's only 30, but so I'm gonna help her with getting a job potentially. But I got to know everybody, and there were people that live very close. There were people, numerous people. One guy he said he came for one test swim and immediately canceled his membership at Collin Ranch. It was very interesting. He said the only thing they have that we don't is a sauna, but heck, he thinks he'll build one now. He just said it was much more economic, a good price point. And it was a beautiful facility, so he was thrilled. And he also works out in the weight room already. Another interesting thing I learned, because I had a briefing on our agenda today, so this will be the agenda coming up on the 25th. One of the items there was that we were accepting in a grant for the police officers for 1.5 million. And the next item was a $250,000 to outfit their gym over at the new public safety center. And what I was interested in when I first toured the public safety center, they had told me, yeah, we've got $1 million grant. It turns out it's $1.5 million, but we got $1 million grant to outfit the gym. And I was thinking, what are they putting in this gym that's not in our new gym at the pool? Well, it turns out they're the same. They're using the same exact equipment, package, vendor amount. And that was interesting to me to find out that they cost the same, $250,000. The one at the pool was paid for by the Atlantis. And, we're really grateful because otherwise we wouldn't have to spare $250,000. And I think they're going to start some kind of classes. I'm not entirely sure yet. One thing at a time. But I highly encourage you to go check it out. It was a really, really nice experience. And people were like, one guy said, I've been paying taxes in Reno for 25 years. It was all worth it today. I was like, really? He goes, oh my God. So that was really a cool kind of statement. But one lady this geologist was moving from Maui, and she thought it was a phenomenal resource for the community. And I got there around 3:30. But what I didn't know, so we started swimming laps. I met a friend over there. And what I didn't know is about 4 o'clock in came the swim teams. So that was okay. We still had a lane. But we thought, well, let's go over to the mid-sized pool. So we're in there. Nobody was in there. In fact, it had been closed when she first got there at 3:30. So we started swimming the lanes over there. And apparently we were going the wrong way on the, it's called Lazy River. So it's a resistance pool. And I thought you were supposed to walk or swim against the resistance. And that's what we were doing. Except the lifeguard told us,
Resistance.
huh?
That's the term resistance.
Except the lifeguard said we needed to go the other way. And I'm like, well, why? She goes, well, it gets really crowded in here, and we had to tell the kids it could only go one way. And so that way. So we started walking that way. It's kind of weird, but okay. Well, and then I'm like, what kids? Well, about 4:30. About the time we went into the hot area, or about 4:15. I looked back at that pool. Oh my gosh, it was like filled up with kids. I really couldn't believe that it's become this popular this fast on a weekday. So anyway, it was learning a lot. And then let me see, was there something else in council liaison report that I was going to share with you from, well, if I think I'll hold it right there for now. I am fascinated that they pulled 6,000 plumas, because for those of you who don't know, speaking of pools, that's where the Lake Ridge Tennis Club pool was torn down. The indoor pool, the outdoor pool. Well, and that should bring me back to the pool for a minute. As I walked into the pool, I met the one person I should have met, which was this lady named Sharon, who been the long-term swim coach, who was devastated when they tore down the pool. And what happened, for those that weren't around, was a developer bought the property. It was about $8.5 million. It was very controversial. It's the most appeals we've ever gotten on a project. First, there was 9 appeals, so we've only ever gotten maybe 2 or 3 at the max at one project. It was 9, and they studied for weeks and prepared. And right as they were about to present, the developer pulled their application, like what just happened here. And so they didn't present, I think is what happened. And so what happened then was they tore down the building, they demoed it because they owned it now. And then they resubmitted. And there was now 19 appeals. 19. So we spent, everybody gets 10 minutes to speak, each appellant. And so we heard 3 hours of appeals, plus I think there was at least probably an hour and a half of public comment. And this was all in the evening. So it was a close vote. It was a 4-3 vote, as I recall, with myself and the mayor and Jenny Breckus voting no, and there was 4 votes yes. So they're moving ahead, but it's been sitting for about 4 years, maybe 5. I'm losing track. And so it was fascinating to me to see this on our agenda for those of you who had no idea what 6,000 plumas meant. Now you do. And so we'll look forward to what they bring back. And, you know, we can talk later about why some of us might have voted no, what our issues were, and congestion on McCarran. And anyway, but I met Sharon, who had been devastated. She's been the long-term 30-year swim coach. She's produced Olympic champions out of here, which we just had some Olympic champions win. One of them was Chip Hobson's son, who I'm forgetting his first name right now. What's that?
It's Brian.
I don't know if it was Ryan, it could have been. Anyway, he medaled at this Olympics, and there was another local person who medaled, and they all learned with Sharon. And one of the benefits of having a pool at 5,000 feet is it's a great workout, and you really train well. So anyway, they do expect a lot of people to come here and train over the years, because it is a Olympic sized pool. And so, but she said, "Oh my gosh, Naomi, this is unbelievable. Never thought I'd see it in my lifetime." So another happy customer. So what's that, Luke? That's it, Luke Hobbs. So anyway, any questions for me? That's my update for today. Yep. It's fine. What music? I like nice music. Okay. Anyone?
Oh, I do have a question,
Oh,
just to follow on, if I may,
Yeah.
Keller. What happened to the, report you gave on the power plant raising the rates to the public, and we were writing
Oh.
a letter, and we were supposed to get that, and
and I apologize. It was such a quick turnaround.
what happened?
Well, I submitted my letter, opposing the rates. And I went to the hearing in Carson City. I submitted my letter. The hearing was closed in Carson City. There was a protest march by a consortium of environmental activists who were not allowed to speak because this was more of an evidentiary hearing than a public meeting, but I still wanted to be there. So they went out and had like a news conference after they all left the room. I got there maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes late. Something else happened that morning. They got very frustrated. They went outside. They got interviewed by the TV as they were leaving the room, which is not that much bigger than this room, but a little bit, maybe half again. They were all in the back and they all left chanting. So it disrupted the proceedings. And I don't recall if the chairman maybe took a break because they were all chanting. And then they were chanting in the hall. You could hear that. And then they were outside. And I couldn't speak either, but I had to leave at noon, so I was there for half a day. I mean, I couldn't speak anyway. But I was absolutely astonished that my letter was brought up at the hearing. And so that was in the morning. Well, I went and had lunch with our attorney from Tumwa, who was there representing another client. And, I came back and then, then I left. I was there for a little bit in the afternoon. Well, she said, Naomi, later in the afternoon, your letter was brought up again. And I was I mean, a lot of people wrote letters, so I was surprised to hear that my letter was mentioned twice, maybe because I'm the only elected that wrote. I really don't know. So it must have had some impact. I mean, um, so that happened. And then I heard that, I believe it was yesterday, and I lost track of this. So then there was a public hearing here in Reno. There was one at noon and one at 6 in the evening. This was about roughly 2 weeks ago, only it was at the same time as our council meeting. And they had 2 times to speak, one at 1. Well, we had a Ward 2 project coming, that was a time certain at 1. I couldn't go. And then in the evening, we had an appeal. So the evening one was at 6, our appeal starts at 6. And also I had to run the meeting because the mayor often in the evenings has me run the meeting, the whole meeting. So I couldn't go and participate at that one. And then I heard that there might have been one more decision or meeting yesterday. And maybe with the outcome. So I don't know. So that's kind of everything I know about it right at the moment. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I just wanted to provide one update that the next Ward 2 NAB will be on October 15th.
That was item A6.
A6.
for the
Oh,
record,
A6,
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jen. Perfect. Okay, we've got that one. All right. Now we're gonna move on to the business B1 Reno Fire Department. It doesn't look like we have a representative from.
No, Madam Chair, they confirmed earlier, but same with RPD, which I am still working on a makeup. Forgotten all the boards. They let us know that if something were to come out the fire, they would be able to come, so hopefully they're not on anything too urgent, but I'll reach out afterwards and at least see if I can get you a written report in the meantime and then have a follow-up visit so that you can ask your questions. In the meantime, if you think of questions, you can send them directly to me. And I'll pass them on and get your answers. But just don't send them to the whole board because it's a walk-in forum issue. So just send them to me and I'll make sure you get an answer.
I would like to say with the Davis fire that we had and the Reno Fire Department, I live over there on West Huffaker. And
It's just where the fire decided it was headed.
yes, and my parents live up off the Thomas Creek Road by Arrow Creek. My very senior parents. And the city of Reno, I was so impressed that when we had that, when the winds were coming up and, they were preparing for that additional evacuation areas. I was out walking my dog pretty early and I noticed 2 battalion chiefs parking in the Crystal Lakes Park. Then I said, they're gonna make this a staging area. Well, sure enough, an hour later, we had like 8 fire engines
Oh, in Crystal Park.
in Crystal Lakes Park, right there on Stanley.
Yeah.
And, I thank them. I thank you guys so much for coming and being here. And I think our whole entire community that came together to fight this fire with the resources that we have and the planning and the emergency center that they put together and we're forecasting just like we do with fire, just like with the floods, with the potential of where it could go. Having been an emergency management with flooding with Councilwoman Dewar and seeing how they did it again with the fires, very impressive. And I talked to several friends that have homes in Montreux and in Washoe Valley, and the praise and the thank yous and just the unconditional love for our firefighting community that saved so many homes is unprecedented and warranted. And I don't know how we thank everybody as a community for what they did and being such heroism and effort to save our community.
Well, I would like to report on that actually. Because of Mimi's and my experience with flooding, whenever it's been flooding around here, I've been doing updates on my Facebook and things about what the outlook is and about 5 days out and what it's looking like and what you should do to prepare and a go bag and all the things. Well, and I've done it, for some other events. We've had a series since we left flood. I've done it then too, but this time I went into overdrive and I can't really explain why, but I was very frustrated because I didn't have any official role. I can't go out fight fires. I can't, hold public meetings. I couldn't do any of it. I wasn't in charge of any of it. So what I started doing and I continued doing for the whole week was posting about 8 posts a day. So I think I got up to probably close to 60 posts. on the fire. And I got so much feedback. I ended up doing on my personal because I just posted one or two things. People were so grateful that I felt like I didn't want to switch over to my council one. So I just put a notice on my council one that if you want a fire update, go to my personal. So you're all welcome. I mean, I've got everything, official notes, interesting anecdotes, GoFundMe's for various people that need help. But to your point, one of the things I was about to post today was how to thank the firefighters. And I got a post from a friend, from a firefighter who said ways to thank them and how to help them. And as part of that, what I wanted to do, I found on the Humboldt Toyabe Forest Service page, a email for them. And I had posted that previously by itself. But this time what I asked to do, what I was going to do was post this, if anybody knows Wendy Burley, she was the one who shared it with me. She runs Girl Farm out by the Nevada, California state line, if you go up 395. Anyway, so I contacted our senior managers and said, if people want to write a thank you note to our Reno fire, where would they send that? And this caused quite the little shuffle. And I think they're still working on it, but they were setting up a separate email if you want to write something to all the firefighters, you know, and I'll be posting that probably tomorrow. And I also have the one for Humboldt Toyabe, and I'm getting the one for Washoe County Truckee Meadows Fire. So they realized as part of the after action report that we're a very giving community and we don't know what to do because they're totally self-sufficient with the Forest Service. They do this is their job. They have all the stuff. The one thing that I did, my friend came over to pick pears last night because her name is Pam Main. She lives in North Reno and she has run for, I guess I met her 15 years ago, a group called the Reno Gleaning Project. And so she goes around picking fruit throughout our community for free. And she gives that fruit to food banks primarily. And she actually got a call from Truckee Meadows Fire asking them to bring fruit. So she did over the last couple of days, and she was coming to pick yesterday, except it started raining. Maybe she came today, I don't know. I was not home most of the day, but they won't take any kind of homemade food. It all has to be made at a restaurant that's certified. And so a lot of people are very frustrated making food, but the fresh fruit, which is not processed, is fine. So, and they actually asked for it. So that was interesting. We have grapes, we have pears, we have plums right now, apples, the whole thing. So, but in my little post is going to be things that are not like running up there and delivering water, that kind of thing. Or now, if they set up in your neighborhood, my post does include that. If they set up in your neighborhood, how to work with them there. And there were some pretty good suggestions. So that's good. I was so concerned. I went to the meeting, the DePoli South Reno meeting, which was a public meeting that was held by the Forest Service, first one. And a lot of residents that were evacuated came to learn what was going on with the fire. They did an excellent job. And I met a lot of the Forest Service people there. But the biggest complaint I've heard about the fire is some poor communication, not from the Forest Service, but from our local governments. I've heard pretty good praise about Reno and pretty much some criticism about the county, unfortunately. So much so that first experience was Commissioner Clark, who also covers this area for the county, the same area that I covered for the city. He actually posted on his professional Facebook that he got more information. He specifically listed me and the Republican women as being his two primary sources of information during the fire. And it was unbelievable how many people told me that they were completely reliant on my Facebook. And I couldn't believe it, but it is hard to hunt and pack the information. Some was put out by Truckee Meadows Fire, some was put out by the Forest Service, some was put out by Reno, some from the county. And what I was doing was being a misconsolidator, right? I was taking it all and either reposting it or digesting it or giving a quick update on what they were telling us. So, that may continue. I found out there's other people that do it. One guy that does it, this is his job, said he was going to my Facebook to get information, and this is like his job. So I was like, okay, that's a little scary. I'm not an official information source, but it is one, I'm mentioning it because it was been a bit of a criticism. That our official channels, what happened was the transmitters for 3 TV stations went out. When the power went out on Slide Mountain, the transmitters went out. And people aren't used to falling back to other types of resources, and so it's just out. Plus, the reporters weren't really out doing interviewing so much or reporting on the fire. And so I don't know what you experienced, but
Well, doing what we've done is, I was looking for more information.
Mimi was in communications at the county. So what better person before she came to the flood project?
So not seeing more updates from the news stations with using their social media, because their social media platforms are still very viable.
Exactly.
So I didn't think that the news stations were reporting enough. I even think that they could have gone to radio. I mean,
Exactly.
there's always radio, right? So
And
they
people are supposed to have battery powered radios part of their,
so people were in our cars, people could still listen to radio, but I think even just going out on Facebook and Instagram, even if you have to use your Twitter accounts, I got a lot of information, I was gonna get it from the national, our weather service.
Yeah.
The Twitter, and so I was a little disappointed that we weren't seeing more things from Washoe County Emergency Manager. What, I'm like, where are they? And since the fire started in Washoe County, I thought it'd be a little bit pertinent that we get more information.
me too. And she's newer. I think her name's Kelly Echeverria. And I worked with Aaron before her for years, and so did you.
Yeah.
He was the emergency manager, and we knew him very well. I even,
Website.
what's that?
I mean, even just update, going to emergency management page on the website. So I felt
Yeah.
that there was a lack of communication.
Yeah.
On many fronts. And like you were all having to hunt and peck and look at different sources
Yeah.
to try to find, waiting for those notifications, waiting for
Yeah.
those updates, and
And of course, a lot of people during the fire learned about Watch Duty, which is an amazing app. And there are other apps too. And so I
perimeter
was,
map,
what's that?
perimeter map.
Perimeter. I was consolidating all of that. And the one thing I decided wasn't gonna do was I wasn't gonna update my personal and my professional. I wasn't gonna do Instagram. I wasn't gonna do Twitter.
Right.
I said, I'm just gonna be here. If
Yeah.
anybody wants to find me, this is where I'm going to be. Cause it was a lot, right? I was pretty much doing it all day long for the 5 days anyway. And then randomly
Yeah.
tailing off today. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but I did have a debrief with some of our senior staff yesterday and told them they really need to talk about that. Like, they should know where to send thanks to firefighters. They should know that we're giving community how we can help, those kind of things. Okay. Well, we did our own fire update without the fire department.
One way to say thank you to the fire department, I'm in a group called Thank You Ma'am. And it's women get together and hear about small nonprofits and then donate $100 a quarter. But we just gave a fire department, it's really emergency services, called Nevada Peer Support Network.
Right.
And what they do is they were there on the scene, on the fires. And when a fireman gets overwhelmed, or police officer, or emergency worker gets overwhelmed, they go and get counseling. They also buy special equipment for the firemen. And we just donated $13,200 to that group.
Wow.
For some sort of gear that they needed. But if the community wanted to donate to them, it's called Nevada Peer Support Network.
Thank you.
That's excellent.
Anything else? Anybody have more comments or questions on our own fire update here? Being met, all right, we're gonna move on to our development projects. Our C1 has been withdrawn, we're gonna move on to C2.
So I'm gonna make a comment though about C1. If they do come back, Tyler,
Yes, for now.
make sure that people know, because given that there were 19 objections to this in the first place, you would think there would be somebody here. I mean, I believe that we had 65 people here to talk about it at a previous NAB. And so the fact nobody's here, they don't know what this is.
Yeah, because,
So I usually put in paren, something like Lake Ridge Tennis or
yeah,
something that connects them with a something.
Yeah, I'll make sure
So,
that
okay.
communication gets to the planner, and I
Yeah.
also want to comment more on what I said earlier about withdrawn. The planner let us know that the project was withdrawn because it was submitted as an amendment. The staff has determined it should not be an amendment, but a new project, so it's going to come back in
Oh,
as a new project.
Okay.
So when it does come back in, we'll make sure they have we'll ask them to put the Lake Ridge. program.
Lake Ridge Tennis, maybe a friend.
Is it the same developer from Ranchera? That's the same.
Yeah, so, well, what I understand is, so it's Lion Living, which was the financial partner at Ranchera. So they did an agreement with Joel Grace, and I forget Joel's company's name. He pulled out entirely and it's all Lion Living. He was the, carry-on from Reno Land.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So they pulled out entirely and it's just Lion Living.
We're gonna move on to item C2, LDC 252C25-00004, Starbucks Fire Creek Crossing. A request has been made for a conditional use permit to allow for a restaurant with a drive-through facility within 300 feet of a residential zone property. The site is located on a portion of the 17.6 acre parcel in Plant Street Crossing Shopping Center on the northwest corner of Redfield Parkway and Kidsky Lane. The site is located the site is located in the mixed-use urban zoning district and has a master plan use designation of suburban use. Will the representative here?
Yes, we have one representative on Zoom, Frank Coda. Frank, is there anyone else we need to promote to allow to speak, or will you be the only one giving the presentation tonight?
No, that'll do it. Thank you.
Right. We'll get
Thank
that
you.
together. Pulling it up now. When you're ready, Frank, just let us know when you want us to advance the slides.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Frank Coda. I'm a principal in the firm of Greenberg Farrow. We're the architects and engineers for the proposed project. The project, next slide, please. The project is basically a conversion of the now closed Boston Market that is at the corner of Kidsky and Fire Creek Crossing. The site plan is in the right-hand corner of the slide. We are generally rebranding the building to take away the Boston Market look and do a new contemporary look for a Starbucks. Adding a covered patio. There's a patio out there today. We're going to cover it and put some solar panels on top of that covering. And then we reconfigured the drive-through lane as shown to give us better queuing for our drive-through lane. If I may have the next slide, please. This is our proposed floor plan. The existing drive-through bump is on the bottom of the page. The main entry would be at the top of the page where it currently is today. We're basically gutting the interior with the exception of the rear wall. Looks like there was an expansion at some point in time, so we're leaving the expansion in place. It'd be too difficult to undo that now interior, but was exterior wall. And then the patio is same footprint, but like I said, we're covering it. Next slide, please. These are our proposed elevations. The south elevation, upper left-hand corner is the, I'll call it the main entry side as it is today. You can see the patio cover coming out to the right-hand side. The upper right-hand corner is if you were looking at the front of the building, the narrow side. And then, of course, lower left is the drive-through bump outside, along with the lower right is the rear that faces the rest of the center. Next slide, please. This is a perspective. Obviously, it doesn't quite show the grades that exist. We'll look at that in a second. Out there, as you know, if you've been out to there from the drive-through lane, it slopes down to Fire Creek Crossing Road. But we did want to give a feel for what this would look like in 3D. And then the next slide, please. This is another view of that exterior side from this vantage point. And then the last slide, please. Oops, not the last slide yet. This is an interior view of what we plan to do on the inside. And then the next slide. And this is kind of a little bit of the before and after. You can see the Boston Market on the left side, our proposed rebranding of that building on the right. That I said, you can see it slopes down. The other thing, we've had a request from planning department to remove all the stone that wraps around not only on this side, but along Kitsky. So to replace it with some plantings, and obviously the rendering doesn't reflect all the plantings. It was just really for the architecture, but that also will come to be, I think it was actually a request of the police department. They were concerned that those rocks are a good size to grab and throw and cause damage. So we've agreed to do that. So that concludes my presentation of our project. It's pretty straightforward. Basically, Boston Market drive-through food to a Starbucks drive-through coffee shop. I will leave it at that.
Just to let everybody know that there is a current Starbucks in that Fire Creek Crossing Shopping Center down by the Applebee's. So I'm assuming, Frank, that Starbucks is gonna be moving up into the new location.
That is correct. I should have mentioned that. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, this will be a relocation of that. That store will close, and this will be a much. I've been in that existing one, and it's a little bit small, and so this will give a nice third place as well to adding the drive-through to the Starbucks arsenal there.
Yeah, I have a question, Dave Tetzel. You mentioned solar panels on the patio area, or is that gonna power the whole thing partially? What's?
It won't, yeah, it won't give us enough for the whole thing, but it'll definitely give us some additional power, and will be used when, as much as we can, to subsidize the power requirements. That's correct.
Frank, how many people can stack in that drive-through?
There's a good amount, but hold on, I'll get the number for you. 1 second. $17.
Well, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
Although you might need 2 windows for that. But
Yeah, you know, Starbucks has not gone to the 2-window scenario. They feel like this is their best way to move as many customers through, but yeah, we do have 17.
yeah. I have a question. So are these Starbucks, are they franchises, or are they all owned by Starbucks? How does this work?
The Starbucks is, how can I say this best? Almost all of them are company owned. The ones that are, and they don't use the franchise word, they use the licensee word. So for instance, if you see a Starbucks in an airport or in a Target or a grocery store, those are what they call licensed stores. Those would be the ones where the employees, they would be of Target or whatever the store is.
Okay.
But these are all company owned. Outside of being in those locations, all the stores are company owned.
So, I went to that Boston Market quite a bit, I mean, probably once a month. You did too. I was sorry they closed, but, the food was pretty decent. I mean, not on a regular basis, but for fast food, but, I'm glad that you're reconfiguring the drive-through a bit. having been there, it's kind of a tight turn. I mean, you show it and then where they had you order and stuff like that. Um.
Yeah,
So,
you're,
now go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, I'm saying you're correct. That existing drive-through lane is a little short, as well as it's, like you said, the order, all the equipment is right along there, so, yeah.
So a question I have is on your rendering here, you show a lot of trees, but on all your drawings, you showed none. So, what's the story there?
No, these are so the 3D renderings, our renderers generally don't get all these types of trees. What you're looking at is the actual proposed landscape plan that's part of our planning submittal to the city.
Do you know what you're planning to plant? Just,
I do, if you want, I can pull up the actual landscape plan. We do have all the call outs, although I will tell you that we did have some comments from planning to relook some of the plantings that we had proposed. But if you'd like, I could pull that up.
no, I mean, if they already have you revising them, I mean, it looked like you have flowering trees in the center parking lot and some kind of, I don't know, the yellow, I don't know what you have, but anyway, we are over in urban forestry, which is another commission we have. We've been working very closely with planning to make sure that the trees that are planted are A, designed for our climate, B, provide some bang for the buck in terms of canopy and shading, and get watered appropriately. And then C, it was interesting to me, you're removing the rocks because of the police, but not because of the planning department. And the reason is the rocks, hold heat even when they're white. And the trees, provide shade. And, I'm gonna have to talk to the planning department. I mean, it's interesting, the police are getting rid of the rocks. It's very interesting to me, not the planning department.
Yeah.
So, thank you for sharing that.
Sure. Yeah,
Agreed.
it was an interesting comment, but I tend to agree with them, right? Some of those are just really nice size for chucking at people, so. Yeah.
And also a lot of, there are a fair amount of people that kind of hang out at that shopping center. That, so that's a thing. And then the last thing was, it is a pretty steep slope between where the building is and where the not the drive lane, but the Fire Creek Crossing Road. And, if you do end up putting some kind of ground cover, like if it's, chips or something, it's very possible they'll fall off that slope. So what you may end up having to do a little bit is to put in 2 terraces or something. So just be aware of that. Once you put your trees, what else is going in there? Because mulch is probably flying away. But
I
it's a
would,
good choice, but.
yeah, I would agree, especially to your point, right at that corner, that's the steepest part of it. I remember when I was there trying to go up and down it, and it is kind of steep. So we may have to your point, have to bench it a little bit and be able to make sure we have good slope stabilization.
Yes, so that the trees have a chance, that there is some kind of ground cover, mulch or whatever, and, et cetera.
Yep.
Okay, Audrey?
Yes, Audrey Keller. We've seen a Starbucks presentation before and they talked very much about the lighting plan. And if it's a dark sky lighting plan, could you address that, please?
We are redoing some of the existing lighting because it's basically in the way or where the proposed drive-through lane is. But outside of that, we were planning to keep the existing lighting as is. That's our current plans, at least.
Are you talking about on the building, Audrey, or within
No.
the shopping center?
In the center is what I was talking about.
Within
Sorry.
the center and covering for parking for safety purposes, but also if you're keeping existing lighting, is that dark sky lighting and is that appropriate in today's world?
Well, we were just continuing the whole center's lightings as it is. I mean, that's a large center, as you know.
Well, you might as well check it out, Frank, and ask them, our planning staff, since you have to have some visits back with them.
Okay, we can do that.
And that is a large parking lot. It's quite a space between the proposed Starbucks and the Ulta building, so, It's a large parking lot, and, you know, it hasn't been utilized for quite some time, it is a little dark over there. But of course, illumination from the building will definitely help that as well, so.
So one thing you're not hearing here, Frank, is, you know, within a half mile, I would say half mile, is the, what's that?
No, I don't even think it's a half mile, I'm talking about
Is the Dutch Brothers at the convention center. Are you familiar with it?
I am.
So we've had many conversations about it here and our advice, let me put it this way, the NAB's advice to the planning commission was to deny it. That they didn't have enough stacking, they were pushing out into Virginia Street. I think they have room for like 4, 5, 6 cars, not 17. And that kind of thing, and it's been a nightmare. They've had to have security out there, staff out there at another drive-through lane to cut the stacking in half. They've had to pay fines to the city. This is a pretty different setup. So kudos to you for reusing an existing building, which is the greenest building approach, right? And thinking it through to where it wouldn't impact, you know, your main street there, Kitski. And so on. I mean, it's very good. In my opinion, it's so much better than some we've seen here.
It could be that when they come out of the drive-through, if there's quite a few, make that right onto Fire Creek or to go out, it could get a little stacked up if they're trying to go right onto Fire Creek.
Well, I was gonna mention that too.
It's gonna get stacked up. I mean, it gets stacked up now just from regular shoppers and people coming from Sam's Club and Walmart, and TJ Maxx. It gets a little congested in that corner, which I don't know if you experienced that or not, Frank, but with adding the Starbucks and having the drive-through there, it is definitely gonna get a little bit more stacked up for the people trying to exit the shopping center and get out on Fire Creek.
So one of the comments from engineering was, and we show it on the plan now, where we're gonna be striping that intersection where you can see it says do not block intersection. Obviously, that was just the graphic, but that is a condition as well to re-stripe that intersection to keep it clear, to your point. So I just did want to bring that up as well.
I'm glad you did, because when I would go to the previous facility, it was usually late in the evening, not in the middle of the day when Starbucks would technically get most of its customers, but when people are also shopping at Walmart and so on. I didn't have a lot of problems, but it still was you see the angle that you have at the exit, and if they want to take a right turn and then immediate right onto Fire Creek, it's a little bit of a challenge. Like, there's only 2 cars or like 3 cars maybe could stack there before they run into your driveway. So what is your thought? Like, are you gonna stripe it so where they say you can't stop at the driveway?
No, the good news is we have a pretty good amount of distance from where the drive-through window is to that intersection, as you can see. So we've probably got 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 cars that could stack, you know, to your point of being able to get out to Fire Creek. The thing that I think was also driving it is making sure that incoming cars from Kitski did not get stopped if they want to go left towards the Starbucks, right? Because that could be a real problem to Kitski. So I think the combination of incoming as well as some, you know, leaving that intersection open if people want to go through it, what have you, was the genesis for that comment from engineering.
I do think like during the holidays, it's gonna get pretty stacked up in that intersection with people trying to leave the shopping center. With going out on the Fire Creek crossing and taking a right or just sitting there at the light. I do think when people come out, then they'll they'll drive up by TJ Maxx and exit, or they'll drive out by Ross and exit. So they do have other options to exit out of the shopping center. They don't have to just sit there and wait at this intersection.
Well, and I've been there at Home Goods, right? Isn't that there?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I
That's
mean,
so crazy.
trying to get out of that parking lot at any kind of busy hour, weekend, 5 o'clock, whatever is, you know, is very challenging.
I guess I was gonna say, I guess the good news is as as it goes, Starbucks' busiest hour is that early morning, right?
Exactly.
So it's a good, if you're gonna have a busy, it's at least it's not with everybody else. Not to say that you won't have some of those items, but yeah.
This is a really busy shopping center, and that TJ Maxx and that Ross is insane, like every day. And so I do think putting the Starbucks here, because that other Starbucks was small and kind of hard to get to, and now with this being more front and center right on Kidsky, I do think it's gonna draw people to this business that have never typically would have gone to the other Starbucks, because one, we've got a drive-through, two, it's more conveniently located. So I do feel it is gonna drive more traffic to the shopping center, no doubt, so. And throughout, and that shopping center is busy, mornings, evenings, lunchtime, so, which is great for the shopping center, it's gonna drive more traffic, but just know that at this intersection right here it's gonna get congested. I mean, there's just no getting around it. But I'm thrilled that you guys are utilizing that, taking over that Boston market instead of trying to rebuild a new building, that you repurposed one, and because it's a perfect spot for it. And it's a perfect shopping center for the Starbucks.
It is, and plus you built a pretty spacious interior with a lot of seating, and your exterior seating, I mean, is very good as well, so.
It's great. It's perfect for that shopping center. It's what it needs.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I think that's part of it is to give, the center doesn't, the current cafe doesn't really give a place for people to hang out and do the third place thing, and this will do that. And, my opinion would be there's as you guys were pointing out, there's probably a lot of customers that aren't going to Starbucks today that go to that center. So perhaps the net new traffic isn't really a great increase. I mean, we will get people in the morning with the drive-through, that's for sure. I'm not gonna pretend, but
It's
But-
gonna increase, there's no doubt.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, you've already figured that
Yeah.
out, that's why you're doing it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Dave?
Yeah, Dave Titzel, I have two questions, actually. First one, are there gonna be any bike racks, places for people to lock up their bikes? And second question is there a reason you didn't put more solar panels on the roof or whatever so that you could get offset more of the electricity that you're gonna use?
So to answer the bike, yeah, we will have some bike racks. I don't think we show them on this plan as we speak, but I do know that Starbucks likes to have bike racks as well. So they'll be added to the plan if they're not there already. As far as the amount of solar panels, they typically like to have them exposed so that people can see they're in the solar business. We can certainly ask if they want to add some more on the roof. I think we do have some room to do that. But that's kind of where they're coming from.
I'm glad David brought that up because I was thinking the same darn thing. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Frank? Frank, thank you for bringing this project forward. We love it. We love it that we're repurposing a building in our ward. I think that's fantastic. And, Starbucks is a great business, and being able to expand it and bring more livelihood and bring a larger Starbucks and, more tenants, more patronage to the shopping center is fantastic. And I love the design. I think it looks great. I think it fits in well. What a great improvement, changing it from that Boston market. So very nice. Well done.
So do know, Frank, that everybody here and on Zoom will be writing up comments, the comments you just heard. They'll be reiterating those, and those will go to the planning commission. So whether it's about the trees, the rocks, the solar, the stacking, the traffic, you should expect to see those little write-ups when you go to planning commission, okay? As well as positive.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for presenting today, Frank. We appreciate your presentation and your time, and we look forward to seeing the Starbucks. Any anticipation of when they might start the remodel?
We are trying to get permits just after the first of the year. We've already started our construction drawings, so we're trying to go as fast as we can. So I think we're tentatively scheduled for the 2nd of October for our planning commission hearing. At least that's what staff has told us that's what we're targeting. So again, if we can start say February or so. Lovely time to start, but we have inside work to do. We hope to be open, I don't know, summer sometime,
Fantastic.
July-ish. That's the plan. Let's go as fast as they can is their typical MO, so.
Well, thank you so much for your proposed timeline, we appreciate that.
Surely.
Anything else for Frank?
I just have a question from what you said, Naomi. So are we supposed to put in those comments or are you saying they're just gonna be
No,
natural?
you need to put them in. So we have both forms and you can add them electronically. And tell me how that's been working, because Donna's had a lot of issues where her forms haven't showed up in the planning commission packet. Have we kind of gotten that resolved at this
Yeah.
point?
I've been troubleshooting that issue with planning and also with Donna, and I've let Donna know that she can fill out a form and I'll make sure they're sent over. But on the agenda for today, there's a link under the C items for developments. And it's for the project review form, and you can fill that out electronically and it will go to the planning commissioners and it will be attached to this project. Or if you fill out one of the public comment forms up over by Leaf over there. And give it to me during this meeting, I'll make sure it's forwarded to the planner and also the planning commission, and the comments will be attached.
And
to
usually
this
we
project.
want to see those comments, I think, within 24 hours. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, please send them, submit them, or give them to me within 24 hours, because sometimes the planning commission date can come pretty close after the NAB.
Right.
And there's
Sometimes it's the
exceptions.
next day on Wednesday, and sometimes it's 2 weeks out.
And I think we also have Carter here.
I just wanted to clarify for the October 2nd meeting, the staff reports are due tomorrow.
That's
So
what I'm saying.
we submit them.
Yes.
Yes.
They'll be, if they're not included in the staff report, we do send them directly to the planning commission. So either way, that's the process.
Great, so send them as soon as you can.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank, so much. Have a nice evening. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. You all do the same. Bye now.
I have a question.
And Pierce, just so you know, the general public are also allowed to make comments as well as all the NAB members, and sometimes they do. And all of those get sent into the planning commission, so feel free. I know you didn't make any comments today, but you might have some.
When we're talking to the people on Zoom, should we be talking to this? Because if I'm talking to them, they're seeing the back of my head.
I know,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
the,
I'm thinking like, wait a minute, I've
well,
been.
do we want to in the future put that up front? So,
yeah, I can put the presenter chair maybe right there on that corner by Mimi. I don't want the person sitting there in case they're here in person to block the view. But the person talking has to sit close to that so we can make sure we capture all the comments.
So when we were talking to Frank, was he seeing the back of our heads instead of?
well, I was looking over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Dewar was looking, but the owl has it's a 360 view, so it was seeing kind of like the side of your face.
So I need to talk to our people on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll make a note for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, I
switch it
think
down
it'd be
and
good to
switch
put it over there.
It's a great
Thank
idea.
Yeah, because.
Now, also, there might be a better projector where it could see, because it's gonna get blocked by these wings of the projector. If it's up there, and we might have a stand that doesn't have the wings.
We could probably just put the projector on the table.
Yes.
And see if
Yeah,
it's still wide enough to the screen to
Yeah.
not have this card thing in the middle.
See, Frank is seeing the back of my head right now, and I'm talking, to myself, I'm like, okay, let me address Frank over here.
Yeah.
You know, with based on
Mhm.
where we're sitting and. You know, so unless we move the chairman back over there,
which it used to be,
which it used to be.
which we could do. If this doesn't work, you could move these seats back over there and maybe put it, in this, or leave it where it is or whatever.
We'll come maybe 20 minutes early next time we set up and we'll play with some different configurations for the camera, making sure everyone can see the camera can see them, and also everyone can hear.
Yeah.
Be heard in the
Okay.
meetings.
Cause I just wanna make sure I'm looking at them when I'm addressing them instead,
Also, you might need then, if it gets further away, you might need another one of these little dudes.
Extenders.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, you can only have one right now. This model of owl, you can only have one mic extender.
let's buy another one. If I have to buy it with my
Let's do it.
council money, I don't.
Right, we'll make it work.
thank you so much, then they don't have to, cause I.
And I gotta tell you, like, they have a meeting room at the pool, and I thought we should try it one day. You know, might go swimming, get changed, and go to the meeting.
Yeah,
Have the meeting in the pool.
Exactly, in the pool, in the hot spring part of the.
How are the old times, Mark?
I don't know.
Not well.
Okay, we're gonna move on to board and commission committee member reports and announcements. Would anybody like to report or announce anything? Audrey?
So, in order to comply with our suggestion of filling out of the form regarding our comments on the project for Starbucks, got handed the form and there's nowhere to write any comments. This is a, public speaking, yes, no. It's a yes, no. There's no place to
That's not-
say,
That's a different form that you need.
well,
So the project review form, Audrey, is on the agenda, the link with the full comments. This one is kind of a manual process, so if you
Yeah.
want to write your comments, then you can, otherwise you're welcome to use the link like everyone else.
Would it be easier to just go home and use the link?
well, it would. I just wanted to see it work it through.
Yeah,
Work
we used
this-
to, I thought, have different comment forms for the NAB that had bigger spaces.
Yeah.
Cause I've seen them.
Do it. I don't think I've ever brought them in 2 years, but I'll see if I can find them,
Did,
and
did
that
that
could be
before?
sounds like a great idea, a good addition, so we'll
Yeah.
make sure we have them.
One other item. We saw the Parks Department report, a couple of times ago, right? Where the Parks Department gave us the overview. And I really was shocked at the amount of budget that they have for repairing our parks. I think he gave us a number of $2 million was the budget. So Naomi, what happens now? Because our parks, and again, I know it's citywide, there's 30+ parks.
Mhm.
But $2 million, the way the money goes today, won't even fix one park.
No, I agree. I think,
And
I
what's
don't
the
know where they
plan
came
for
up
that?
with that, very low dollar.
Right, what
Is it probably 2 million a year?
well, yeah, but still.
I don't know.
if Each park gets, you're gonna wait 30 years for a $2
Right.
million investment. So how does that work in the city or is anybody talking about public and private partnerships?
They
for
are.
parks?
And so that's a great topic for a future meeting. They have just added to the Parks Department a guy whose whole job, his name's Landon Miller, he's been our public outreach guy. His whole job is to go find money for parks. I have proposed a ballot initiative. But it takes people that, like you, that care and have a lot of energy to put towards it. We're foreclosed at any public agency for supporting that. It's like a state law that we can't, we can give requested information and that's it. We can't make an opinion. We can't go out, work on it. There's no staff. It's a citizen ballot initiative. I proposed one for the 2027 legislature, which would take, Richard J is a passionate parks guy and he came to council about a month ago. He was very upset. He wanted us to go out for a bond issuance to support soccer fields immediately. Now that we just got done doing the pool, but we also just did a $40 million bond for that. And we just did a $65 million bond for the Public Safety Center. Or 60 million, something in there. And so I'm not sure that the city's in a position to do more indebtedness. But he is a finance guy and he felt passionately about it, and so we're researching it. This is to build new, not to do your maintenance. We also were considering a legislative bill to increase the amount of what's called what is that called? A residential construction tax. So right now we charge $1,000 a door, $750 for an apartment. And that number was set in the 90s. It has not been raised, it's in statute. And it cannot be used for maintenance. It can only be used for new stuff by law. We already tried to change this the first year I was on council to what it could be used for in the dollar, and we failed. The legislature doesn't seem to be that concerned about city issues. I mean, that is one reason we decided to have no bills this year. Because we're tired of either being ignored or being told no, them not forwarding our bills. I specifically went to the legislature and testified to do a legislatively approved ballot initiative where we could work on it. And they didn't pass our bill out of committee. And I'm like, why would this hurt them? Why are they opposed to this? How does this take away from the state as a whole? And it was very frustrating because we didn't get any support from our Northern Nevada legislators either. And so it is a hard road to hoe. That's why we just added this position, and all they're gonna do is look for grants, ballot initiatives, funding, whatever. And so I will just tell you too, that we just went through, I think it was 8 employee contract union labor agreements. And while we can fund them this year, it's gonna have a very big hit on us next year. We're not gonna have ARPA money next year. We're not gonna have a variety of other grants we're living off of. We're already looking at very, very tight budgeting, which will be happening this year for next year. And so I don't think there's gonna be a lot of room for maintenance of parks next year. It would be all we can do to pay for fire, police, and all our employees, which fill up 85% of our budget anyway. So it's gonna be very, very, not this year, we've got everything covered and we have balanced budget. But next year's, gonna be challenging. So that's why I think we should be thinking big and working on a ballot initiative. But in terms of future agenda, I think that it's worth maybe having Landon come, since he's the new guy doing this job. And with Nathan or somebody and talk to us about it. So maybe pass that on.
Got it. I'll reach out.
Any other announcements or comments today? from the board?
I guess I would, I got electronically sent, what you got that postcard with
Oh, you did?
the RTC, their bike plan stuff and made comments on it, but the comment that I made is, I really appreciate them putting money towards bike infrastructure. I truly believe that if you build infrastructure for cars, you get cars. If you build infrastructure for peds, bikes and mass transit, that's what you're gonna get. I think we'll have a better city if more people get out of their cars. So I just applaud. I know the city of Reno is also doing this with RTC, so.
Yeah.
So I applaud that you're doing these streets and would look forward to doing more.
Great.
You everybody for those comments? We're gonna move on to item number F, future agenda item.
Oh, I thought we were.
We're just
It's kind of both.
both. Any other future agenda items with board members?
Patrick Pagano.
We haven't heard any updates from we haven't talked about our affordable housing for a while.
Yeah.
With the way the phrase of the real estate market is going and heading into 2025. I mean, is that something that the board would like to hear an update or, just hear what's happening on the affordable housing front? Patrick or Donna, would you guys want to hear any kind of update or have a discussion about affordable housing? We used to talk about it a little bit more. We haven't talked about it for a while.
Donna's raising her hand.
Okay, Donna, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. As far as the affordable housing goes, I think I brought it up once or twice, and I am if relatively recently about all the stuff that the city's doing. I personally am not that interested in having a presentation on that. There are other things that were suggested as future agenda items that I'd be more interested in. Because the affordable housing thing is kind of done and closed now, and they passed the drafts of the amendments already to
What
Title
about-
18.
Sorry to jump in. What about Title 18, which got an update at council? And they said they're taking a few months before they bring back a draft. Is that something?
Of which part of Title 18 are you referring to?
Any part? I mean, I think they gave us over 600 pages. So, what do you think about that, Carter? Title 18,
It's the text update thing, then, if it's the whole package you're talking about.
it is the whole packet,
Yeah.
which they're now being more cautious. They're planning to include trees. They're planning to include
Right.
horses now, which are all unexpected. It was design, building permanent. What, you're laughing?
Well, no, I agree. I think it has changed its scope a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is yeah, things are being introduced and they're going out for stakeholder meetings.
Right,
for-
so I feel like, how do we make sure that these folks know about the stakeholder meetings?
So there is my understanding is there's a list of, like a stakeholder list that anyone can be on. I feel like the NAPs should be on it if you're not receiving them.
Well,
That's
I don't
probably
recall.
something we can add,
Oh,
for sure.
yeah.
Okay. I'll
So-
make that suggestion.
I'll send the,
Plus, it would be good by the next month, they'll have some meat to talk about, and it would be good, I think, to get an update. By Title 18.
Well, what is Title 18? I don't.
So that's, we'll go ahead. Cory.
Yeah, so Title 18 is it's the land development code, so it's planning, zoning, it has details on landscape and architecture, all the requirements for development within the city fall in Title 18.
You're updating that?
Yes, yeah, it's less of a comprehensive update, it's more of a issues that were identified from the last update, we're just shoring them, we're fixing them.
Well, let
But
me,
there are a number of things that were added recently that.
Is this the ADU stuff or is that?
no, it's on a
Yes.
separate track. But what it does include is I got very frustrated because we just had a huge appeal and it went over 2 council meetings about a charter school. And here's the difference. You have to go to the planning commission to raise your fence from 4 feet to 6 feet, one person. I just talked to one person last week. But we have a new school with 1,500 students right next to another school with 350 students in North Valleys, tremendous congestion issues. And that doesn't go to the planning commission. And so I recommended that it does go to the planning commission and they have started to include that in this update out of the blue because we had a huge appeal, many appellants, full council chambers going to almost midnight conversations. Why? Because it never had a public review. But the public did care. And it wasn't really like your charter and this is it will apply to all schools. Not, public schools, school district public charter schools, independent charter schools, religious schools, all of them. Now, they have set a threshold. I think the threshold's a little high. It's for 400 students. I've asked the planning commission, regional planning commission staff to talk to our staff because they already adopted a threshold and I think it was 350. And I just thought we should kind of be consistent. Okay, so that's some feedback and I've asked Jeremy Smith over at Regional Planning to get with Angela on that. On what is a good threshold, but just the concept that we're gonna do it is remarkable and good, I think. Another thing, I was just thinking, another change I asked for. Nothing to do with trees or horses. I mean, I will just tell you, Carter, one thing I'd like to see, and let me put this in a parking lot for the agenda, but an issue I see, and I have brought it up for 10 years, is that about half of our residents live in apartments. And they are affected by planning and policy changes and all that. But they do not get notice. Only the owner of the building gets notice. So if you're like a corporate owner and you live out in South Dakota, you get a notice. But nobody that lives in the building gets a notice, even if you're within 750 feet. You don't get a notice. And so I thought this was problematic. This creates 2 different members of society. If you're a landowner, it goes right back to voting rights. It used to be you had to own land to vote. So it's a disenfranchisement to me that a renter doesn't have the same rights as a landowner to participate in our planning process. So that is something that I would love to see changed. I've been advocating on it since I came on council. And I'm gonna bring it up to Angela, so we could maybe add. So, just as an example. But there was another thing I was gonna share with you too, but anyway, all of these things will come up if they give us a presentation, then we can find out what's on the list.
I'd be interested.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would too.
yeah, okay,
It looks like Donna might have a comment.
yeah,
Okay, yes. So, okay, what's going on, in my opinion, or from my perspective with Title 18 is it's again being this conflagration, if that's the right word, between what's a what's a text update and what's actually substantial changes to the code.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff in there that are substantial changes to the code that are not really, that are still now blended back into the text update of the 600 pages that you're going to see soon. So there's that. And then if anybody wants to know about these sectional things, such as you know, who's a person who, what's the word, you know, whether or not you have standing, if you want to object to something, that's a whole separate line item that has a consultant's report written on it, hasn't come up yet. A bunch of changes to the sign ordinance are starting now. They have, they're having public meetings, virtual public meetings about that. It seems like it would be a no big deal, but I blew through it the other day because of some email groups I'm on, and I'm like, okay, it seems innocuous, but there are, and all the text is like, oh, this is no big deal, we're doing cleanup, but there are actually are substantial changes to the sign code, and that comes into play as in current Ward 1, of course, like you can have your sign overhanging a right of way without having a site plan review in front of the planning commission if the engineer approves it when he looks at how to construct the sign. So why are we still removing, well, you know, it comes to mind to me, of course, is Jacob's Keystone,
Right.
you know, so there's a lot of stuff that's messy details going on in there that it's so massive. So I think if this board has some specific things that they're interested in, like concentrating on multifamily housing or single family housing or business development or something, it would be really helpful if we have staff to come, because the magnitude of what's going on is not doable in a NAB meeting presentation. And we'll just get the same kind of one we got before about it's just text changes and code cleanups, even though it's not. So I would say that if we put our heads together or separately and submitted some suggestions about particular topics of interest, generically, it would help focus, because there's an amazing number of things happening in that
Well,
code.
what if we, to that end, what if we ask staff, even if it might not be perfect, to at least present on what they might consider substantive changes?
Sure.
It may not include everything, and what we might think is substantive, they might think is nothing, but at least we'll get some subset of things that are new or change, you know, substantive changes.
Sure.
We could ask it that way rather than the usual presentation in 15 minutes and not enough time to talk.
Right.
And you're right, there's not enough time to talk anyway, even if we took up the whole NAP meeting. So I would encourage everyone to get on this list, that you're gonna somehow make sure the NAP members are on the list.
Yeah, I'll check.
Carter, and then pay attention to if there are subgroups of topics you're interested in. And to be honest with you, it's probably bigger than 600 pages. The original one we got was 780 pages. And so this one isn't quite that big, but it is still heading towards 700 anyway, I think.
It's pretty
So,
big. So
yeah.
have we passed public comments yet for?
No,
Okay.
we're on future agenda items of what we want to come.
Okay.
Audrey? When you're talking about the review of Title 18, one thing that I learned going through the appeal process is that a PUD document is not given to every person that buys a property inside a planned development. And it should be required that PUD is given as part of closing documents.
Good.
Because that is a big issue, and it has been a real big issue. So we have PUD 1, PUD 2, and Ranchera. Neither of those key documents were included in our closing, anybody's closing. And that should be a requirement because it's so important to understanding what's gonna happen.
I don't know if that's a city law or maybe a state real estate law of what must be included in your closing documents. You know, a real estate related law where they have to include your CCNRs and
Exactly.
title reports and X, Y, and Z. So I don't know, but we should bring it up. Okay.
Thank you. Dave?
What is the status of the ADU? Is that ready for, to give us an update, or is it
No,
still?
do you know,
going on?
Carter, what the schedule is?
I don't, I wonder if there is a page on our website that gives more detail or some information.
Carter, if you send me the page, I can send it out to the NAB members after the meeting.
So we haven't heard anything at council, so I think they're in some kind of stakeholder meetings.
Are there any other future agenda item requests from the board members?
I'm Donna Keats for the record. I'm curious about if the last request that I made is going to go anywhere about the redevelopment agency board information. if there was.
Go ahead, Don.
Or you go ahead.
I've got on my list to follow up along with the parks presentation in Landon. We've got a couple of projects on an upcoming council agenda for the redevelopment agency that are relevant. So
Oh,
I'm gonna reach out to Brian McCardle and see if he can come to a meeting and talk to all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your valuable comments. And we're gonna go on to public comment. Now, item number F. Do you have any public comment for members of the public? Anybody on Zoom?
Donna?
Okay, this is a general public comment. It's actually related to 6,000 Plumas. Because I was kind of surprised to see that on our agenda. So I went back and looked at the application, blah, 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 and I just, if this affects, at some point, this is all Ward 2. So I don't know how many of you will remain on the Ward 2 board, but it's kind of a big deal. I couldn't help but notice that it seems to me, even though they're touting, they're cutting back the number of units, but it seems to me that they've eliminated all the trees along McCarran and the right of way, and they're now parking. And there's parking everywhere. And the quote amenities that are required are now all interior of a building. So they've taken away what would make this be other than a block wall friendliness. You know, no more pitched roofs, making it flat roofs, parking all over everywhere with hardly any landscaping. And so just as a heads up, when this comes through again, there's a lot of stuff in there that, you know, makes it sound so nice because, oh, we're reducing the density of what we asked for, but they're also consolidating buildings, putting amenities on the inside, no pedestrian amenities on McCarran anymore, which is where, you know, people walk. That was a big, I don't know how many of you participated the first time around, but I was at all the meetings and I spoke. And a lot of people, 245 people were at one, I think at the appeal meeting or one of the meetings. It's huge. So if I just want to ask you as board members to pay attention when it comes back through to see what they're really saying they're going to do, because it's really not, it's not so great, even though they're cutting out 13% of the apartment units. Anyway, just as a heads up, we're losing landscaping and trees. In the meantime, the trees that were supposed to be preserved are just dead anyway, because they haven't had any water in 5 years.
I don't know that that's true. We have repeatedly had them come and both have water trucks. I haven't seen a lot of trees die myself, but they were looking real bad last
They
summer.
were really looking stressed for a long time.
This summer, even though it's been so hot, they seem to look better. And so I think that they got our message because I think we were finding them also.
And then as also part of my public comment, I wanted to ask Councilwoman Dorr to take a drive by the corner of Mountain View and Lake Ridge and come down in front of the dog park and see what they're doing with that, with the construction project there that got approved, because it looks to me like they've raised the grade a lot. So by saying they're, oh, it's only 3 stories, still they've got a big, anyway, just take a look at it and see what you think.
Is this the project that was?
Yeah,
supposed to be
senior
in-
care PUD that now is being 300 apartments right across from the children's playground at Virginia Lake Park.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so just if you would just take a look at the construction site. I was unable to find a grading permit or anything, or the original what they said versus what they're doing. I couldn't figure it out, but looks to me like they raised the grade against the dog park at least a story. So
Okay, wow.
half a story, but a lot. And the house next door has, of course, been sold because it's like, we don't want to live here. So
Thank you for your comments, Donna. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in the room who'd like to give public comment on today's meeting? If you'd like to give public comment by Zoom, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window.
Actually, yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, yeah, so I wanted to use this space just to reiterate this biggest little bike network flyer, which we can pass around or share later on. But one of the reasons that I mentioned earlier that the Virginia Street line of the 4 streets selected here is so important to me is because that's how I get home. And on a bike, and I just take the whole lane because if there's no bike lane, I'm obligated to do that. And people try to do close passes if you try to stay all the way to the right. So you just have to sit in the center of the lane. the thing that's pretty great about this is that I can get from where the new business building is, that's where I'll be housed next year, all the way to Liberty, and then I get killed by a car. There's a reason I don't go to that intersection, and we've already had a pedestrian fatality there this year. And then it's like 2 little turns more and I'm actually at my house, so it works pretty well for me personally. Just needs to go 1 more block to California, then I'm totally safe. It'll be a completely connected network at that point.
Is that a comment you're gonna make?
So I think my comment is to say, like, I'd love to have that extended 1 more time. I would love if everyone here was willing to make a comment however they feel about this thing. But just to go online and make a comment, how that would be really helpful, just to have it RTC know it's important to a lot of people here too, in this ward. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. All right, well, seeing no other public comment, the next item is item G for adjournment. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Audrey. Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Stay tuned, we might